They gave my sister the apartment I renovated, then blamed me when her gambling fiancé ruined everything. Hi, I'm Lily, and today I want to share the kind of story that makes your jaw drop and your blood boil, especially if you've ever felt taken for granted by the people who were supposed to have your back. This is the story of Lauren. It's about family, betrayal, and what happens when the golden child makes a catastrophic mistake, and you're left to carry the blame. Let's start from the beginning. Lauren was 28, working full-time and paying her own way. For the past 4 years, she had lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment that technically belonged to her parents, but she treated it like her own. She wasn't freeloading, far from it. She paid monthly rent, handled all the utility bills, and even dropped close to $25,000 of her own savings to renovate the place from top to bottom. The kitchen? Gone was the tacky linoleum and avocado green appliances from the 1980s. In came polished granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, a new sink, and soft close cabinets. The bathroom got a full facelift, too. Modern tile, new vanity, recessed lighting. She ripped out every inch of old carpet and installed hardwood flooring herself. By the time she was done, the apartment looked like something out of Architectural Digest. Even her mom, who rarely handed out compliments, told her it looked pretty nice. In that household, that was basically a standing ovation. Meanwhile, her younger sister was still living at home with their parents, earning minimum wage at a retail job with no plans of leaving anytime soon. Every family dinner played out like déjà vu. Her sister would say something like, "I've got a lead on a management position, and I think I have a real shot." And her parents would light up like she'd just been nominated for a Nobel Prize. Lauren, sitting quietly with her salad, had heard this exact line at least 24 times. Different company names, same empty ambition. Then, one Sunday dinner flipped everything upside down. "I have some exciting news," her sister blurted, barely waiting for the main course to be served. "I met someone. His name is Kyle. He's successful. He works in finance. And he proposed." Lauren dropped her fork. "He what?" Her sister beamed as she raised her left hand, flashing a sparkling diamond ring that hadn't been there a week ago. "You've known him for how long?" Lauren asked. 2 months, her sister said, like it was no big deal. Lauren's eyebrows shot up. "And you're getting married?" "It's not that fast when it's right," her sister insisted, already defensive. "Besides, he's perfect." "Their parents?" "Over the moon." "When can we meet him?" "You must bring him over." Lauren couldn't believe what she was hearing. She voiced concern, gently suggesting her sister slow down. And what did she get in return? "You're just bitter because you're single," her sister snapped. That comment stung, but worse, her parents nodded along like they agreed. Lauren bit her tongue, but deep down she had a gut feeling something wasn't right about Kyle. And as she'd soon find out, that feeling was dead on. Because within weeks, everything she had worked for, the apartment she'd paid to renovate, the respect she thought she had earned, even her place in the family, would be handed over to her sister on a silver platter. And when it all came crashing down, guess who they blamed? I sat there, trying to make sense of it all, while my parents practically swooned over my sister's ring like it was a national treasure. "Wait, when did you meet this guy?" I asked, still trying to keep my voice calm. 2 months ago, she replied, still twirling the diamond like it held the answers to life. My jaw tightened. 2 months? You've known him for 2 months and now you're getting married? I know it sounds fast, but when you know, she said defensively, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. That's not fast. It's reckless, I said, barely holding back. You don't know anything about him after 2 months. I know plenty, she shot back. We met on a dating app. We've spent practically every day together. He's perfect for me. I looked to my parents for backup, hoping, praying that they'd see reason. Surely they'd want her to slow down, but my dad just grinned like he'd won the lottery. "We're so excited to meet him." My mom chimed in, "Yes. When can we meet your fiancé?" I stared at them in disbelief. It felt like I was living in a parallel universe where logic had been thrown out with last year's tax returns. My sister beamed. "I was hoping you'd ask. Kyle would love to meet the family." I took a breath and tried again. "Don't you think you should wait a little longer? Get to really know him?" My sister snapped. "God, Lauren, you're so boring. Just because you're single doesn't mean you have to be jealous." That hit harder than I expected, but I didn't flinch. This isn't about jealousy. It's about being smart and protecting yourself. "I'm happy," she said, crossing her arms. "And that's all that matters." And with that, my parents nodded in agreement like she'd just delivered a TED Talk on love and enlightenment. Clearly, I was alone on this island of reason. So, I let it go. There was no point in arguing with a family that had made up their minds. 3 weeks passed, and I did my best to forget about the whole engagement circus. Work kept me busy, and I reminded myself that her life choices were hers to ruin. Then, on a Thursday evening, she called. No greeting, no pleasantries. Just, "Lauren, you have to come to dinner this Saturday. Kyle's meeting the family. Mom and Dad are cooking. You have to be there." I had plans. Just a quiet day of errands and maybe some Netflix, but I knew how this worked. Skipping dinner would only confirm their belief that I was the bitter single sister. So I said yes. Saturday evening rolled around. I pulled into my parents' driveway right on time, heart pounding just a little too fast. When I walked in, the whole family was already gathered in the living room. My dad in his recliner, my mom perched on the edge of the couch like it was a throne. My sister, of course, was front and center. And next to her was him. Kyle. I'll admit it, he looked the part. Tall, clean-cut, tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect smile. "This is Kyle," my sister jumped up, practically glowing. "Kyle, this is my sister, Lauren." He extended his hand with a practiced grin. "Lauren, so great to finally meet you. Your sister talks about you all the time." "Nice to meet you too," I replied, shaking his hand. It was firm. Too firm, almost like it had been rehearsed. We all sat down. I watched him closely. Every movement was smooth, every answer polished, but something about him didn't sit right. And soon, I'd learn just how right my instincts were. Dinner began the way most do, pleasant small talk and the clinking of cutlery. My parents dove straight into their getting-to-know-you routine. They asked Kyle where he grew up, what he liked to do for fun, how he and my sister met. His answers were fine. On paper, everything sounded great. He grew up in Seattle, loved golf, met my sister on a dating app. All reasonable, but something felt off. Every response came out smooth, polished, like he'd practiced them in the mirror that morning. His smile never faltered, and his tone was too perfect. Like a man who'd rehearsed the part of ideal son-in-law and was now performing it. We moved to the dining room, where Mom had made her famous pot roast and mashed potatoes. Kyle laid on the charm thick. He complimented the food, asked Dad about his job in construction like he actually cared, and nodded thoughtfully at every answer. My sister, meanwhile, was glowing like a teenager at prom, but I couldn't let it slide. Something in my gut screamed this wasn't right. "So, Kyle," I said casually during a quiet lull in the conversation, "what exactly do you do in finance? Investment banking? Portfolio management?" He smiled again, but this time I saw it, a quick flicker in his eyes. Not fear. Something else. Hesitation. I work with clients on various financial strategies, portfolio optimization, risk management, that kind of thing. He replied smoothly. That's pretty broad, I said. What's the name of the company you work for? My sister cut in sharply. Lauren, stop. You don't need to interrogate him. I'm not interrogating, I said, still calm. I'm just asking a normal question. Kyle shifted in his chair. It's a smaller firm. You probably wouldn't know it. We focus on private wealth management. Something about the way he said that made my internal alarm bells blare. So what's the big secret? I asked. Most people don't mind saying where they work. There's no secret, Kyle said quickly. I just prefer to keep my personal life and work separate. I glanced at my parents. They were squirming now. My dad cleared his throat. Maybe we should change the subject, but I couldn't help myself. How much do you make? I asked. Are you financially stable enough to support my sister? That did it. Lauren, my mom snapped, her voice sharp. That's incredibly rude. What? These are fair questions. He wants to marry her after 2 months. Shouldn't we know if he can actually take care of her? My dad stood up, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. Lauren, I think it's time for you to go home. I stared at him, stunned. Are you serious? You're creating a tense atmosphere, my mom said coldly. If you can't be polite to our guests, then maybe you should leave. I looked around the table. My sister looked mortified. Kyle's mask of politeness was cracking at the edges, and my parents. They were more concerned about his comfort than my very real concerns. Fine, I said, grabbing my purse. I can see I'm not welcome. No one stopped me. No one followed. No one said, let's talk about this later. They just let me walk out. I drove home in silence, frustrated and emotionally drained. Maybe I had pushed too hard, but I kept coming back to that one truth. People who have nothing to hide don't squirm when asked simple questions. A week later, I'd moved on, focused on work, tried to chalk it up to just another family dinner gone south. Then came Saturday. The doorbell rang. I opened the door and nearly choked. It was all of them. My parents, my sister, Kyle. And before I could even say a word, they walked past me into my apartment like they owned the place. What's going on? I asked, my voice sharp but steady, as I watched them stroll through my living room like it was a real estate open house. Kyle moved slowly, taking it all in. The refinished oak floors, the fresh coat of paint, the updated lighting fixtures I installed myself. He stopped in the kitchen, running his hand along the granite countertops I'd saved months to afford. My sister trailed behind him, proudly pointing out the stainless steel fridge and upgraded appliances, like she was a real estate agent trying to close a deal. My parents just stood there, arms folded, observing the scene like this was all perfectly normal. I asked again, louder this time, "Why are you all here?" My mother turned toward me. Her eyes were hard, her mouth set. When she spoke, it was flat and cold, nothing like the woman who used to tuck me in as a kid. "This is my apartment," she said calmly. "I have every right to be here whenever I choose." Her words punched me straight in the gut. "Okay, but why are you here with them?" I asked, motioning to Kyle and my sister. She turned back to Kyle like I wasn't even standing there. "So, what do you think?" she asked him. "Does this place work for you?" Kyle nodded, a smug smile spreading across his face. "It's perfect," he said, slowly turning in place. "This would make a great family nest for us." I nearly choked on the word nest. My sister beamed like she'd won a prize, and my parents looked like they were handing over the keys to a dream come true. "Good," my mother replied, then finally turned to face me. "Your sister and Kyle are planning to move in together. They need a fresh start, a place of their own, and this apartment is perfect for that. I stood there, frozen. But I live here. My mother's eyes narrowed. That's your problem, she said icily. You're not married. You don't have anyone. You don't need a place like this. The cruelty of that sentence hit harder than any slap could have. I had built a life in this space, paid for it, renovated it, made it feel like home. And now I was being erased from it like a line of chalk on a sidewalk. Are you seriously telling me to move out? I asked, already knowing the answer. You have 2 weeks, she said without flinching. And just like that, they turned and walked out. My parents, my sister, and her soon-to-be husband. They didn't thank me for the upgrades. They didn't ask if I had a backup plan. They just left me standing there, alone. For a long time, I didn't move. I just stood in the middle of the living room, staring at the walls I'd painted, the furniture I'd arranged, the shelves I'd built. My brain raced with the urge to scream, to sob, to call my mom and demand an explanation. But instead, something else lit up inside me. Not grief, not desperation, just clarity, and a slow, simmering anger. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play smart. I grabbed my laptop and opened a dozen browser tabs. I wasn't going to beg to stay where I wasn't wanted. I was going to get out on my terms. By Sunday afternoon, I had 3 apartment tours lined up for the week. Monday, I used my lunch break to check out a unit about 10 miles from work. It was a little smaller, about 750 square feet, but it was clean, quiet, and came with a reserved parking spot. Tuesday's option was even better. Closer to the office, walkable to a grocery store, though the kitchen was cramped, I could make it work. But Wednesday, that apartment sealed the deal. Brand new building, better security, central air, and the rent was just $75 more than I'd been paying my parents. The unit's yours if you want it, the landlord said. First month, last month, and a $1,000 deposit. I didn't hesitate. I'll take it. You can have the keys by Friday, the landlord had said, and just like that, the countdown began. On Thursday, I started boxing up everything. And I mean everything that was mine. I didn't touch a single item that had come with the apartment or that my parents had paid for. But the reality was, they hadn't paid for much. Over the past 4 years, I'd furnished nearly the entire place myself. The sectional sofa I'd saved up for over a year? Mine. The dining room table from that Labor Day clearance sale? Mine. Every single kitchen appliance, from the blender to the toaster oven, mine. The smart TV, the media console, the framed prints on the wall, even the shower curtain I'd picked out from Target, mine. If my parents wanted to hand Kyle and my sister a newlywed starter home, they could furnish it themselves. Friday came, and I picked up the keys to my new place. I sat in my car for a full minute just staring at them, cold metal in my hand, but somehow it felt warm, like freedom. The weekend was a blur of cardboard boxes, duct tape, and sore muscles. I rented a small U-Haul, just enough to make the move in 2 trips. Saturday was furniture day. Sunday was all the extras, kitchen stuff, books, artwork, linens. By the end of the day, the apartment I'd once poured my soul into looked like a hollow shell, cold, empty, nothing like the cozy, elegant home I'd crafted from scratch. And yet, I didn't feel sad. I felt free. Monday morning, I woke up in my new place. Smaller? Yes, but quiet, clean, mine. No unexpected visits, no guilt trips, no judgmental glances from across a dinner table. Just me, a hot cup of coffee, and a space I didn't have to share or defend. Then my phone rang. It was my mother. I hesitated, but curiosity won. "What the hell did you do?" she screeched the moment I picked up. I blinked. "Good morning to you too. You took everything, the furniture, the appliances, Everything. I stayed calm. I took what I paid for. Everything I bought with my own money. That stuff was for the apartment, she snapped. Number. That stuff was mine. You kicked me out with 2 weeks' notice. What exactly did you expect? You need to bring that furniture back right now. Kyle and your sister have nothing to sit on. I actually laughed. Are you insane? You told me to leave, and now you're upset that I didn't furnish their future for free? I'm not being spiteful. I'm being practical. I need my furniture in my new apartment. Silence. And then she said it. Cold, deliberate, like she'd rehearsed it. You are no longer my daughter. And she hung up. I stared at the phone for a second, then set it down and made myself breakfast. If that was how she wanted to end things, so be it. I wasn't going to let her guilt poison this new chapter. The weeks that followed were the most peaceful I'd had in years. I found a rhythm in my new place. Morning walks, a shorter commute, a new grocery store where the cashier remembered my name by week 2. It wasn't just a move, it was a reset. No texts, no calls, no family updates, just silence. Until one afternoon, 2 months later, when I was scrolling through Facebook. There she was, my sister, posing in my former living room, or what used to be mine. It was barely recognizable now. She'd redecorated in her usual mismatched style. She stood grinning, holding up a stack of papers. The caption read, "Officially a homeowner." Mom and Dad transferred the apartment to me today. So grateful to start this new chapter with Kyle. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. Officially a homeowner, Mom and Dad transferred the apartment to me today. So grateful to start this new chapter of my life in my own place. That's what the caption read, plastered across a filtered photo of my sister beaming in my former living room, holding up what looked like a deed. She'd redecorated, of course. Gone were the earth tones and clean lines I'd chosen. In their place were clashing colors and an oversized live laugh love sign above the mantel. I stared at the screen, numb, not just because they let her move in, but because they gave it to her, legally. My parents had transferred ownership of the apartment I'd poured 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars into. It hurt. I won't pretend otherwise. But it also confirmed everything I needed to know. I'd made the right decision by leaving. These people didn't just fail to appreciate me, they actively disrespected me. I closed the app without liking, commenting, or even saving the post. Some things don't deserve a reaction. The next 2 months were peaceful, even joyful. I focused on work, met some of my neighbors, and spent weekends reorganizing my new space just the way I liked it. For the first time in years, I had something precious, peace of mind. No surprise visits, no walking on eggshells, no guilt dripping from every phone call. Then, out of the blue, my phone lit up with her name. My sister. I stared at the screen. My first instinct was to decline. We hadn't spoken since the ambush at my apartment. But something in me hesitated. What if she was calling to apologize? Or had finally opened her eyes? Curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" I answered, cautious. "Lauren." Her voice was shaky, on the verge of tears. "I need to see you. Can we meet, please?" I blinked. That was not what I expected. "What's going on?" I can't talk about it on the phone," she said, her voice cracking. "Can we meet at that cafe near your old office, the one with the patio?" She sounded genuinely upset. And while part of me wanted to hang up and retreat back to my peaceful bubble, something told me this wasn't just drama. This was serious. "Okay," I said slowly. "What time?" "Now. I know it's short notice, but please." I didn't have any plans, Just a frozen lasagna and a new book waiting at home. I'll be there in 30, I told her and hung up. The drive was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I played every possible scenario in my head. Maybe she'd broken off the engagement. Maybe Kyle had finally dropped the act. Maybe she realized that I'd been right all along. When I arrived, I spotted her immediately at a corner table, and my breath caught. She looked awful. Her hair was unbrushed, her eyes swollen and red, makeup smudged like she hadn't bothered to take it off in days. She kept twisting her engagement ring around her finger, fidgeting like she was holding on to something that was falling apart. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down, her voice barely a whisper. "What's going on?" I asked gently. "You look not okay." She let out a humorless laugh, more of a sob. "Kyle has some financial problems, serious ones." My stomach dropped. "Like what?" She took a shaky breath. "He's a gambling addict. He owes a lot of money to very bad people." I froze. "How much?" $300,000. It hit me like a freight train. 300,000? She nodded, tears spilling over. I had no idea. He never told me, but last week, 2 men showed up at the apartment. They were terrifying. They were looking for Kyle, told me about the debt, told me he was hiding. I leaned forward. "You can't stay with him. This is dangerous. You have to leave." "It's not his fault," she said quickly, defensively. "He said it happened years ago, that it was just bad luck." I stared at her. "That's not bad luck. That's an addiction, and now it's your problem." "Are you serious right now?" I asked, my voice low and sharp. $300,000 in gambling debt isn't bad luck. That's not a one-time mistake. That's a full-blown addiction. She blinked, tears forming again. "The men who came to the apartment, they weren't violent or anything. They just said they wanted to talk to Kyle." I leaned forward. "Do you hear yourself? You're making excuses for a man who lied to you about owing hundreds of thousands of dollars to dangerous people. And now you're living in a home that I renovated, completely unaware that your so-called fiancé has a financial noose around your neck." "I know how it sounds," she whispered, "but I love him. I want to help him." "How?" "Exactly how do you think you're going to help him?" I asked, crossing my arms. She lowered her gaze, wringing her hands in her lap. "I was hoping. Maybe you could lend us the money?" I stared at her, and then I laughed, loudly, bitterly. "You want me to lend you $300,000? She quickly added, "Not give, just lend. We'd pay you back." "With what? Monopoly money?" I snapped. "I don't have $300,000 just lying around. You've been saving. You could take out a loan." I cut her off with a hard look. "Let me get this straight. You want me to go into debt, serious debt, to bail out your fiancé, a man who hid a massive gambling problem and now owes money to shady people? Are you hearing how insane that sounds?" "He's not an addict anymore," she said weakly. "Wake up," I said, my voice rising. "Of course he is. That's how addiction works. You don't get magically cured just because someone puts a ring on your finger." She flinched. "You're just jealous because I found someone and you're still alone." I sat back in my chair, stunned. "I'm trying to save your life," I said slowly. "This man is dangerous, and you're too blind to see it." "I don't need saving," she snapped. "I need help from my sister." "Well, you're not getting it. Not like this." She broke down completely then, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe you're being so selfish." "I'm being realistic. Find another solution, because I am not sacrificing my financial future for Kyle's mess." I stood up to leave, heart pounding. She grabbed my wrist. "Lauren, please, I don't know what else to do." Break up with him, move back in with mom and dad, start over. I can't do that. Then figure it out yourself. I walked out of that cafe feeling physically ill. She was drowning, and I couldn't throw her a lifeline if she refused to swim. That night, my phone rang again. My parents. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but I knew they'd just keep calling. "Lauren, you need to help your sister," my dad said, not even bothering with a hello. "I'm not giving her $300,000. She's family. Family helps family. Family also doesn't throw you out of your home to hand it to someone else's fiancé. This is different," he insisted. "She's in real trouble. She's in trouble because she ignored every red flag I pointed out and married a stranger. These are the consequences of her choices." Then my mother got on the line. "You're being cruel, heartless, selfish." "No, I'm being smart, something nobody else in this family seems capable of." I hung up. A month passed. That's when I heard from a cousin what had finally happened. My sister had sold the apartment, the very one my parents had gifted her, the one I'd remodeled, and gave Kyle the full $300,000. But it wasn't enough. He'd also drained her credit cards and wiped out her savings, stealing another $50,000. Then he vanished, gone without a trace. She was left with nothing. No fiancé, no home, no money, just crushing debt in her name. She moved back in with my parents, working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. Then the inevitable call came. My mother. I answered, expecting an apology. Instead, she screamed, "This is all your fault. If you had just helped her." "This never would have happened if you had just helped her," my mother screamed. I took a breath, steady but firm. If I had helped her, Kyle would have stolen that money too and vanished, just like he did anyway. "You could have prevented all of this," she snapped. "I tried to," I said, my voice colder now. "I asked the right questions. I raised the red flags, and you all called me jealous and bitter for it. Now you expect me to clean up the mess you ignored?" "She's your sister," she said, like that word should override common sense. "And she made her choices. So did all of you. Now live with the consequences." I hung up and blocked every number associated with them. When the guilt trip texts came from new numbers full of phrases like family duty and how selfish I'd become, I changed my number altogether. That was 6 months ago. From what I hear through distant relatives, my sister is still living with my parents, still working 2 jobs, still paying off debt she didn't even realize Kyle had stacked in her name. The police are looking for him, but he's disappeared completely, like a ghost. Do I feel sorry for them? They had every opportunity to listen. Instead, they kicked me out of the home I built just to impress a con artist. They made their choices, I made mine, and I have never been more at peace with where I stand. Life lesson. Boundaries aren't cruel, they're necessary. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about clarity, boundaries, and choosing peace over chaos. Lauren's experience reminds us that family ties, while important, should never come at the expense of our well-being, values, or hard-earned security. As we get older, we often find ourselves balancing loyalty with self-preservation. But enabling someone else's bad choices, especially out of guilt or obligation, only invites more pain. Lauren did everything right. She worked hard, saved diligently, and tried to protect her sister from a devastating mistake. But her family didn't want the truth. They wanted comfort, even if it meant silencing the one person asking the right questions. When their fantasy collapsed, they turned to her to fix it. The real message? You can love your family and still say no. You can be compassionate and still protect yourself. It takes strength to walk away from dysfunction and courage, to trust your instincts even when everyone calls you heartless. In the end, peace doesn't come from being the savior. It comes from refusing to be the sacrifice.